Hi guys, this is Vysh from Vysh IAS, and we have completed till chapter 8, and also chapter 12 was done along with chapter 7. Now we have to do two big chapters, chapter 9 and chapter 10, which we'll do it in at least 3 or 4 parts each. So this will be the part 1 of chapter 9, and the chapter's name is National Movement 1919 to 1939, era of mass nationalization. So like you see in the picture, it will have the coverage of entry of Mahatma Gandhi into Indian national movement and important events like Jallianwala Bagh, the Rowlatt Act, the Montagu reforms, then non-cooperation movement and how it was suppressed by the British government, and we'll see a lot of interesting things. So this is, I'm talking about only part 1. So chapter 9 has even more interesting events which will happen, so that we'll see in subsequent parts. Please watch all the previous parts, because history is always good when you learn it in the order of timeline. Only then you will be able to connect or relate different reforms or the policies of the British government, and also the struggle which is happening by the Indian national leaders. So let's begin. So first is, what was actually happening in world politics, or how did it influence the nationalist leaders, and how did the Indian struggle shape up within India during the 1919 economic hardships. So obviously the British policies were causing too much problem for the Indian economy. We have already learned the economic drain theory in the previous chapters, and how Indian economy was crumbled totally while the British government was taking all the wealth and riches back to Europe. So the industry, too much imports were happening, so the net exporter, which was India, net exporter changed to net importer. Indian industries were in loss, products were high priced, the artisans and merchants were losing jobs due to weakening of industries, peasants were facing high taxation, especially during World War I, which happened from 1914 to 1918, because these taxes were used for funding the British soldiers in the war. Indians were not at all happy with what is going on, but they had no other option, and they could not survive due to poverty. Educated middle class, we have seen this before also. People were educated, but they were unemployed because there were no options for them. Even the civil services which started were not allowing much Indians to enter into it. Continued imperialistic attitude of the superpowers. So even after the World War I, the Europeans had no change of heart or no change of policy. If you remember the last chapter, we saw like why the Indian nationalists supported the World War I. The moderates were supporting because they thought British will give something in return. The extremists were supporting because they thought they'll get self-governance if they support the British now. Only the revolutionaries were doing some heroic actions here and there in pockets of area across India. But what happened was, even after the war, nothing was given in return by the British government. They were busy dividing colonies among themselves. Paris Peace Treaty happened. You will learn about it in world history when you learn World War I and the consequences of it. And it was peaceful for them actually, the peace treaty, but it was painful for the colonies. Why? Because they were busy again splitting off the areas under them within themselves, so that each of them will be happy and they will end the war peacefully. So militants rise in Turkey, Egypt, Iran, Afghanistan, Burma, India, Korea, Philippines. So across Asia, if you see, everywhere militants were rising at this time. Also there was a huge impact of Russian Revolution, which happened in 1917. If you know, Lenin was at its highest power at that time, and the Russian Revolution was at the peak. So Indian youth, the revolutionaries, were taking inspiration from those movements and were trying to do heroic actions within India. Bolshevik Party of Workers overthrew the Tsarist government. Tsar is actually the head or the ruler at that time at Russia. So he was overthrown by the Bolshevik Party under Lenin. We learn it in world history. They rose to a new power of Socialist Soviet Union. You know, USSR was formed. gave equal rights to Asians within their boundaries. October Revolution proved that a well-organized, united and determined group of masses can take down any power. So this was the inspiration they got. If people of or the youth of India, they come together in a well-organized and well-planned way, then they can take down any big power. Because already last chapter we have seen Indians were ready, or they had the energy within them, but the leaders did not make use of the energy properly, because they did not have a proper plan, or the leaders themselves did not have a unified ideology. That is why earlier reforms or earlier movements were failing. If you remember, Bal Gangadhar Tilak wanted self-governance, Aurobindo Ghosh wanted full independence. So the leaders themselves were not in unity. So now the youth, taking inspiration from October Revolution and the entire Russian Revolution, they started to make a well-defined group or plan. But meanwhile, what was Britain doing? Britain, even after World War I, they did not have any change of policy. They were usually behind their carrot and stick policy. So that is what we learned today. Carrot meaning something to appease the INC leaders or the nationalist leaders. So that was Montagu Chelmsford reforms. And stick is the something which they will do punitive action, or they will take strict harsh action against the Indians if they feel like Indians are not listening or obeying to the laws which they have made. So that is the Rowlatt Act. So carrot and stick both we will see today. So this is Montagu and Chelmsford, the pictures you see. So last time also I told you, Montagu is the Secretary of State and Chelmsford will be the Viceroy. That is how they name the policies. Like Morley Minto, Morley was the Secretary of State and Minto was the Viceroy. Okay, so this is also called Government of India Act 1919. The previous one was called Indian Councils Act 1909. We will be doing all the acts in detail when it comes to the administrative chapter. I think it is chapter 15 of Spectrum. Also, better than Spectrum, I think Lakshmikant is a very good source for you to learn all the act. The starting of the Lakshmikant itself, they have mentioned all the acts starting from 1773 Regulating Act to 1947 Indian Government of India Independence Act. So that one we will do in detail, because questions always come. At least one question about any particular act will come in the UPSC. So we have to do it. But as of now, the timeline we are looking into is 1919, and the reform is Montagu Chelmsford reform. So few important points known about the reform we will see now. Diarchy at the provincial level, not at the center, at the provincial level. So what is meant by diarchy? The subjects actually were divided into two categories, reserved and transferred. So the reserved will be under the executive, that is the Viceroy himself, reserved subjects, and the transferred subjects will be under the legislative. You know, like the council always had two sections. One is the Viceroy's Executive Council and other is the Imperial Legislative Council for the Indians and others. So subjects were also divided among them based on transferred and reserved only in the provincial level. But at the central level, what they do? Central level, bicameral legislature was introduced. That is the lower house and upper house. In the right side picture also you can see the same thing. Even now India, we have a bicameral legislature in the center, and most of the states also have it. About I think 7 states do not have bicameral legislature. That we will again tell you in our next CTS series, Confusing Topics Simplified, where we will tell you a trick of how to remember the state names which do not have both the Vidhan Sabha and Vidhan Parishad, that is the bicameral legislature. As of now, you just remember like all states in India do not have bicameral legislature at present, but in the center we have the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. So 1919 Act was the first one to introduce such a split up or such a setup. So both houses had different tenures. Reservation for Muslims, 6 nominated members. So reservations were also there in both the houses, and it was different also. Women could vote at provincial level. This was also given for the first time in this reform. Budget, 25% could be voted by Indians. If you remember, last time in 1909 what happened? They could vote on single individual items but not budget as a whole. So this time it's like budget vote, you can do 25% of it. And even previous to that, previous to 1909, there was 1892 Council Act in which budget could be discussed but could not be voted. So if you see reform by reform, these people, the British, are giving small improvements alone because they wanted to simply give a carrot to Indian moderates or Congress leaders. So this is how they did their appeasement. They could have given everything together, but they won't do. They'll keep everything or little bit for next time, so that whenever agitations happen, they'll give small reforms. At center, Executive Council, 3 out of 8 would be Indians. So you remember 1909, first time one Indian got seat, that was Satyendra Sinha. Please remember these facts. If you don't remember, watch the videos again. And this time it is 3 out of the 8 Indian. 3 out of 8 would be Indians. So 3 people got entry. Not important to remember the names. Only the first one, Satyendra Sinha, you should remember. And what were the drawbacks? Obviously, when you know the right point, the actual reform points, you can write the drawbacks easily. So there was no full franchise. Everyone did not have a right to vote like we have today. Executive Council had veto and powers to overrule decisions of legislature. So even though Indians who were there in legislature makes any decision, the executive could veto it. Division of subjects, not satisfactory. So we saw the reserved and transferred subjects, and also it was not satisfactory. The more powers and more important subjects were all under reserved category, which is under the Executive Council. Allocation of seats to provinces was not at all uniform. Punjab, military, Bombay, commerce, these are not important to remember. Different places which should have been given more seats, but they are not given. The uniformity was not there when the provinces was getting seat allocations. What was the INC's immediate reaction? They had a special session of the INC at Bombay in August 1918 under Hassan Imam. So usually they have all their meetings in December, but they had an immediate session in August itself because they wanted to discuss these reforms. And final conclusion was overall reforms were disappointing and unsatisfactory. So they were not happy. Remember the president's name of the special session, Hassan Imam. And now the main important person, the father of our nation, Mahatma Gandhi, is coming into picture. Already we know the timeline now, it is 1919, and by 1915 itself Mahatma Gandhi had arrived in India. Before that he was in South Africa. In this particular slide we will see what and all he did in South Africa before entry into Indian soil or Indian politics. So what we should remember is, even though 1915 he reached, he did not participate in the Home Rule League movement or whatever was happening at that time, because he wanted to first travel around India as per the advice of Gopalakrishna Gokhale and study all the problems of India, or he wanted to see the actual India or the real India and connect with the masses. Only then he could think of entering into actual national level mass movements. So first we will see his history in South Africa, Gandhi in South Africa. So these pictures you see, the stamps, and the other second and third picture is Mahatma Gandhi in a train in South Africa, from where he was thrown out actually for racial overtone. That was the reason, because the fair officers who noted him told like, you are brown skinned and you are not one among us, you cannot travel in a train like this, and he was thrown out of the train. This was the first happening in his life where he faced discrimination, and then he decided to raise his voice against all the problems faced by Indians in South Africa. Not only Indians, all the others who were not Europeans. So but why did he actually go to South Africa? He went there for a case, because he was professionally a lawyer, and he went for a case of his friend Dada Abdullah in 1893. He initially went for actually only the case, but he happened to stay there over 22 years, and he'll come back only in 1915. So this picture is actually taken from the movie, Gandhi movie. You should definitely see, because it shows a wide range of events, and every history aspirant or anyone who studies history, let it be whatever exam, or even if you are not taking the exam, to learn about the entire events of Gandhi's life and how he shaped Indian national movement into the way it happened and how India got independence, you should definitely see Gandhi movie, because it will be 10 times more beneficial than watching a particular video which like the one I am presenting now, or reading spectrum. It is 10 times more than that. It is very beneficial for all the aspirants. So please watch the movie. So Narendra Modi also, when he went to South Africa after he became Prime Minister, he has traveled in the same train, in the same coach. Okay, and the next picture I'll explain later. So seeing the plight of fellow Indians, he decided to stay there longer till 1914. 1894 to 1906, it was moderate struggle, like same like in Indian context, how the Indian leaders were first busy with petitions, prayers and protest. Mahatma Gandhi also thought like the higher officials were unaware of these problems and it is the officers who are just discriminating people. He thought like, okay, I'll raise it to the government and they will take action. But soon he understood like it is not going to work. So 1906 to 1914, 8 years, he was engaged in passive resistance, and that is when the concept of Satyagraha was framed by him. Satyagraha was against, first thing was registration certificates. The Indians in South Africa, they were forced to carry a certificate, a paper with thumb impression, and they were meant to keep it always in their pocket and they should present it whenever an officer questions them. So it was like discriminatory policy only against Indians. So he was against it, and this picture is actually that one, same, it's from the same movie. He's collecting it from all fellow Indians and putting it in a dustbin kind of thing, and he's burning it publicly. So the officers will take him into custody. That is the first event by, or the first activity done by Mahatma Gandhi in his life against the British. So campaign against restrictions of Indian migration. There were also restrictions of Indians traveling from one place to another within South Africa. So that also he raised his voice. Then he set up the Tolstoy farm. That's the name of the farm or ashram which he set up in South Africa. The same model thing, he will come back into India and form into Gujarat and many other places. He will be forming it, the Sabarmati ashram and all. Campaign against poll tax and invalidation of Indian marriages. So in South Africa, they were like not considering the marriages as valid if it is not conducted via the Christian rituals, the European rituals. All the other Hindu, all the other marriages were considered invalid. So that also was one issue for which Mahatma Gandhi raised his voice. Negotiations with Hardinge. Hardinge was the viceroy, if you remember, Delhi conspiracy. Sachin Sanyal and Raj Bihari Bose threw a bomb at Hardinge. That was the Delhi conspiracy. So you should remember, you should learn to connect each event when you learn something. C.F. Andrews, General Smuts is also, he's also shown in the movie. Negotiations happened and almost all the demands were accepted. So that was the first win for Mahatma Gandhi, and he turned out to be a leader for the Indians in South Africa. He was gaining popularity. Also in India, back in India also, Gopalakrishna Gokhale came to know about this, and he used to spread the doings of Mahatma Gandhi within India. Masses had immense capacity if united together under a leader. Developed his own style of leadership, the Satyagraha. So that is what I said, GKG, Gopalakrishna Gokhale raised the things in India as well. Non-violence, sufferings, never hate your enemy, never retreat fearing consequence. These are certain ideals of Gandhian style of politics. Never retreat, never give up until you win, and you should not go to undertake violence. One body and one newspaper, which is important. Natal Indian Congress. Natal is a place in South Africa. Natal Indian Conference was Congress was a body in South Africa under the leadership of Gandhi, and newspaper was Indian Opinion, where he wrote lot of journals. So please remember these names. Now Gandhi reaches India, and before he entered into any national movement, three important small movements you have to remember, which is very important because it is over 100 years, 125 years in which this happened, and it is actually the anniversary now. Champaran, it happened in 1917, Satyagraha in Champaran. If you see the book by Dr. Rajendra Prasad, the book cover which I have given, and left side is the stamp which was released for 100 years of Gandhi's arrival in 2015. And in the center picture you see Mahatma Gandhi with a person in the right, that is Rajkumar Shukla, who actually invited him to the Champaran, the place Champaran in Bihar, where the actual problem happened. So we'll see in detail three movements you have to remember. One is Champaran, one is Ahmedabad, and one is Kheda. Okay, Champaran, Ahmedabad, Kheda, C-A-K. So maybe cake or something. That is how most educators will tell you to remember, C-A-K. Okay, so we'll see the content. He arrived in 1915. So 1915 January, even now the Pravasi Day is being celebrated in India because he is returning from another country. So that is the reason why we celebrate that day. And he decided to tour India for 1 year without any political activity. He was not in favor of home rule movement, like I told. And also because the world war was happening, he had his own ideals or principles, and he told like we should not attack or go do anything against the Britain when they are busy with the war. It is not in line with his policies. Right means to protest in non-violent satyagraha. That he told only non-violent satyagraha is the right method to protest. So 3 major events happened. We'll see one by one. Champaran Satyagraha 1917. So it's important. Now it's 100 years. It's called the first civil. It's not called actually, but it can be considered as the first civil disobedience. There is a difference between civil disobedience and non-cooperation. We'll see as the slide proceeds. So this is called the first civil disobedience. So what was happening in Rajkumar Shukla invited him to look into an issue of indigo planters of Champaran, Bihar. In Bihar, what was happening is the Britishers were forcing the peasants to plant 3/20th of the land with indigo, and this system is called Teen-Katya system. 3/20th will be planted with indigo. Forcefully they were asking to plant it for their own profit motive, and they were forced to sell at a price fixed by them. So the farmers have to do all the hard work and they will not get the money also, and high rents and taxes were extracted illegally. German synthetics replaced indigo. So there were alternatives coming out instead of indigo, but still British people did not allow them to stop cultivating this thing. So Indians were suffering, the peasants in Bihar. So that is the reason he will enter. This was later joined by Rajendra Prasad, J.B. Kripalani, Mahadev Desai. So you should remember these people were with Gandhi right from the beginning, from his very first movement. Gandhi was asked to leave, but he defied the order and demanded compensation. Committee was formed for discussing the issue, and Gandhi was also made a part of the committee. He convinced the committee of all ill doings. Finally, he got 25% money back as compensation, and in next few years Britishers left the place. So this was the big win for Mahatma Gandhi. He got connected to the masses. He could get back the compensation what he demanded. So you should know this is civil disobedience. That is, you are asked to do something, you won't obey it, and instead you will demand something. If you simply don't obey it, it will be like non-cooperation. Like you are not cooperating. But if you make intern demands over disobedience, that is called civil disobedience movement. So you should understand the slight difference. Okay, now this is Champaran Satyagraha, important because it's 100 years. Now we'll see the next one. Ahmedabad mill workers strike. So Ahmedabad and Kheda, next two are both in Gujarat. So this can be called as the first hunger strike by Gandhi. Okay, UPSC can pick up these things, that is why I am mentioning. So please make a note. Dispute were happening between mill owners and workers regarding plague bonus. So the workers were demanding some bonus, the employer was not giving, and strike was going on. So Gandhi will obviously enter to help the workers, and he told the workers demand for 35% increase in wages. The employer finally told we'll give you 20%. Okay, but Gandhi told no, we want 35%, only then we'll stop and I'll go to hunger strike until death. And asked the workers to remain non-violent. That was his key. He never went into violence. He will just do his satyagraha. After tremendous pressure on mill owners, the demand was agreed. So again a win for Mahatma Gandhi. Third one, Kheda Satyagraha, which is 1918. Okay, these two events are 1918, both are in Gujarat. First, non-cooperation movement, you can say. So here it is like you won't cooperate to the laws. So let's see what happened. Crops failed in Kheda district of Gujarat due to drought. Okay, crops were failed. According to revenue code, if yield was less than 1/4, then they were entitled to remission, but the authorities denied the right of remission. Okay, they were supposed to not be taxed. It's not like pay extra tax, not be taxed if any drought or something happens. So this is like actually openly they did not come and accept it, but finally due to Gandhi's resistance and strong willpower, secretly they issued instructions like only who can afford to pay it, else don't pay. So it was again a win for Mahatma Gandhi. Vallabhbhai Patel and Indulal Yagnik became Gandhiji's followers after this particular event. If you know, Vallabhbhai Patel is also from Gujarat. So after Kheda Satyagraha only, Vallabhbhai Patel came in touch with Gandhi. So you should remember, Rajendra Prasad was with Gandhi from the first Champaran movement, and Vallabhbhai Patel is with Gandhi from Kheda Satyagraha. Significance of these three movements: importance of Satyagraha was proven by Gandhi to rest of India. Closer contact with the masses. Now he was the only one who knew their pulse. He acquired respect from youth across the nation. Nation got its leader. So Gandhi has become a mass leader. So that is the main agenda with which Indian nationalists will proceed in all the other future proceedings. Let's see in detail. So we saw the Montagu reforms just a carrot. Now we'll see the stick policy. Okay, Rowlatt Act 1919. The newspaper cutting is available on the right side. Every member of Central Legislative actually opposed this act. Okay, Rowlatt is a person's name. Left bottom you can see the picture. Even after opposition, it was executed. This act was implemented. It is called the Black Act in Indian history. You should remember that also, because there are different nicknames for certain acts. There is also Gagging Act for I think the Vernacular Press Act was called like that. So Black Act is Rowlatt Act. It authorized the government to imprison any person without trial and conviction in court of law, thus enabling the government to suspend the right of habeas corpus, foundation of civil liberties in in Britain. So they were defying their own principles of habeas corpus. Usually when a person is arrested, within 24 hours he is brought in front of the court and the trial is done. But here by Rowlatt Act it was like you can arrest anyone, and it was not to be reported to the court, or person was not to be brought in front of the magistrate, which was a very harsh kind of law. So Gandhiji called for a nationwide protest, but constitutional protest failed. Okay. So he wrote in Younger Nationalist. Now he went in touch with the had touch with the Home Rule youth and Pan-Islamist. So Gandhi always did this. He always used to gather people from all classes and all religions, because he wanted a pan-India movement. He will never take a single community or talk about only one religion. He will always take the Indians as Indians themselves from every class. Nationwide hartal, fasting, prayers, disobeying certain laws. So if you see, everything is non-violent. Masses now found a direction and a leader. Thanks to Gandhi's leadership, peasants, workers, artisans all joined the movement. If you remember, the previous leaders were not able to use the actual energy of the masses for a mass struggle. But Gandhi had this great aura or great quality that he could rope in everyone together. Salvation could come with masses, could come when masses were awakened and became active in politics. So he believed like only if masses join in active politics, then India could reach salvation. Large scale violent anti-British riots happened across India, but Gandhi never opted violent methods. He always stayed non-violent. So one important event which is a follow-up of Rowlatt Act is the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, which is a very sad event in Indian history. Again, the left bottom picture is from the movie Gandhi. You have to watch it. I'm saying it again and again because it's very important. The right side bottom, the picture is General Dyer, who gave order to fire at innocents. The book is Butcher of Amritsar, and the top is the picture which I took from Google. Bullet marks are there still present at Jallianwala Bagh. So a board is kept there now. If you have a chance to visit, please visit the place also. So we'll see what was the event actually. After the Rowlatt Act, people could be arrested. So Saifuddin Kichlu and Satyapal, they were arrested. Okay. So people obviously will protest. People engage in peaceful protest in this. So it was a small park and people gathered there for a peaceful protest, Jallianwala Bagh. But General Dyer, who had his mind of his own, did not even think what is happening, and he simply did not like people gathering for any kind of protest, whether it be peaceful or violent or non-violent. He did not care, and he entered with an army. It had only one entrance actually, one entrance and one exit point. And he simply ordered his men to open fire at all these people. Thousands of people died. There was a well inside that park, and people were jumping into the wells, and even then they were shot and people were killed. And whole Amritsar was turned. India was in shock. Even when General Dyer was questioned by his higher officials, like the door was small, and even if it was a bigger door or bigger gate, will you have, and because he had a tank with him, if the gate was big, would you have taken the tank inside? That's what the official asked, out of like sarcasm. But he answered like, yes, if I had a chance, I would have done that also. That much cruel was his mind, and that is why such a sad incident happened in India. And what happened was, Rabindranath Tagore renounced his knighthood. Knighthood is a title, sir or something. Some title will be given to some personalities. So he renounced it. He told, I don't want this title, in protest. If you remember, when Annie Besant was arrested in early 1900s, that time Subramaniam Iyer had renounced his knighthood. So remember such facts. It is important for prelims. Gandhiji couldn't bear this violence and called off the protest on April 18, 1919. So whenever some violence kind of thing happened, Gandhiji would immediately recall everyone and tell like no more protest, nothing, and he will stay silent for some time until he comes up with his new plan. So this is the Rowlatt Act and related Jallianwala Bagh massacre. Next important thing which happened in 1919 was the Khilafat movement and non-cooperation movement. We will do it both parallelly because it was happening parallelly. Khilafat movement was a Muslim movement, so it was not actually an Indian issue. After the World War, you know, like the colonies, the European powers were distributing the colonies, or they were hostile to other regions. So Turkey, which is the caliphate head or the Muslim spiritual place for spiritual head kind of country for Muslims, it was actually treated very badly after World War I. Okay, so this is the background actually. Again, the same things what was happening within India, economic hardships, Montagu Chelmsford reforms were not good, Lucknow Pact, Hindu-Muslim unity, Rowlatt Act, so they are just listing out the things which would raise anti-Britain sentiments. All these things were there in people's mind, and that is when the Khilafat issue also added to all these things which we already saw in the previous slides. Okay, after World War I, the attitude towards Turkey, ruler was disposed of position. For Muslims all over the world, it was an insult. So the effect would be obviously seen in India also, because India also have a large population of Muslims. So they wanted the sacred places to be restored to Turkey and ruler should be brought back. That was the demand, and that is the Khilafat movement. So Ali brothers is there, Shaukat Ali and Muhammad Ali, as you see in the picture. They two were the Ali brothers. So remember these brothers because I told you last time also we did Savarkar brothers, Ghosh brothers, Chapekar brothers, Sayyid brothers. We have done a lot of things which is important for prelims. So please remember when you learn each thing, and should understand the timeline when each things are happening, when each leaders are coming into picture. Okay, so this is the Khilafat issue. So Gandhi, being clever, he knew like Hindus or the Punjab Sikhs, everyone are already disturbed because of the Jallianwala Bagh issue, and Muslims are having this issue of Khilafat. So he joined everyone together and decided to launch a mass movement. That is how the non-cooperation movement will come up. Okay, so initially again meetings, petitions and all those things, then he will slowly go to boycott of British goods. Gandhi was made the president of All India Khilafat Commission. So remember this fact, because if UPSC put a statements like this, Gandhi was the president of All India Khilafat, we would think like no, he did not join any group or he did not become president of any group. But you should know like he was indeed made the president of All India Khilafat Commission. It is a true statement. He saw the opportunity of mass mobilization and launching non-cooperation movement. Support of Congress was essential. Leaders, Tilak didn't want to join on religious issues. Why? Because long back when he tried the Shivaji Ganapati festivals on the streets, people tagged him as Hindutva leader. So he did not want to take part in any religious issues. Also, maybe if it was a Hindu movement, he would have done. But since it's Khilafat and Muslim issue, his inborn instincts did not allow him to join the Khilafat issue. Again, Gandhi intervened and made them realize the opportunity of mass movement. So now support of INC, Muslim League and the masses with Gandhi as a leader. So Gandhi became a leader of everybody. So prelims perspective, I have picked up a lot of things about the proceedings. A joint Hindu-Muslim deputation was sent to Viceroy with their demands, but it failed. Gandhi raised voice against Punjab wrongdoings and Turkey issue. So same thing what we discussed. May 1920, Treaty of Sevres with Turkey, where Turkey lost the entire power. So it was a negative treaty for Turkey. So these are the issues. We are just discussing the proceedings, how it actually became. So one another sad thing is Tilak passed away in 1920. September 1920, a special session happens before December in Calcutta, and Lala Lajpat Rai is the president. So if you remember last video, at the last I had asked you an MCQ whether any extremist leader had become the president of INC before independence. So like you see Lala Lajpat Rai, you have got the answer here. So go back to that video and see the MCQ again, and you should be able to answer it. approved NCM, that is non-cooperation movement, and Khilafat agitation, because he was the president. So INC decided like, okay, we'll conduct the NCM now, and total boycott was decided and established. Swaraj was the goal. Entire movement should be non-violent. Hindu-Muslim unity will be there, and remove untouchability, like no one should be kept outside the sphere of mass agitation. December 1920, the actual INC meeting, yearly event, will happen at Nagpur, and again it was decided by peaceful and extra constitutional methods it should be done. Gandhi said if all goes fine, we can get Swaraj in a year. That much confident was Mahatma Gandhi, because the entire India was on the streets and boycotting British goods. Congress Working Committee, 15 members was formed. The Congress Working Committee was formed for the first time, okay, that time in 1919 to lead the Congress. People who left INC are Jinnah, Annie Besant, Bipin Chandrapal, T.S. Kharpade. They had a difference in ideology of this and they went out of INC. Surendranath Banerjee found the National Liberation Federation. So there are a lot of bodies which Surendranath Banerjee is involved with. Please try to recollect the previous ones and remember this also, National Liberation Federation. Nationwide protest, 90,000 students left government schools and joined national schools. Subhash Chandra Bose, principal of National College, Calcutta. Lawyers gave up their practice. So this is similar to Swadeshi movement which we learned last chapter. Indians are going behind all the Indian things, not the British made schools or set up or offices or professions. Everyone is going for national schools and national bodies. Lawyers, Motilal Nehru, Jawaharlal Nehru, Vallabhbhai Patel, everybody were professionals, lawyers. They all gave up their practice. So you should know, like in those days everybody used to have a job and only then they'll come into politics. But now if you see on the streets, everybody are in like uniform, white and white wearing, and throwing stones or doing hartals and mobs. These people don't even have a job, and without even completing their education they are going and doing the party work. That is why India is in a very bad state now. Just told you the present context and why politics is in such bad shape in India. So let's continue. Heaps of foreign clothes burned publicly, picketing of shops selling foreign liquor. Ali brothers asked Muslims to resign from army. So if you see, everywhere they were pulling out their support to Britain. Assam strikes in tea plantation, railways. James N. Gupta is a name, a leader in Assam. Just remember in case the following comes. Many local movements, Awadh Kisan movement, Ika movement, Mapila revolt. We'll see these in detail when we do chapter 17 of peasant revolt and tribal revolt. Now just remember, like across India, in every state, every class, everybody was following Gandhi and it was a mass movement. But how did it come to an end? It was the Chauri Chaura incident in Gorakhpur. There is a police station. The picture you can see, I took it from Google, Chauri Chaura. So 1921, Gandhi invited talks for Lord Reading. Lord Reading is the viceroy at that time. He was invited for talks, and he instead, Gandhi like asked the Ali brothers not to use phrase of violence. So what he was doing is usual policy of divide and rule. He told like, please go and advise Ali brothers not to use violent words. Okay, but Gandhi did not fall for this trap. Gandhi told, he did not agree, and he told like, we will continue what we are doing. Okay, government came down heavily. Government started attacking the people, and what happened was everything was banned. Public meetings, presses, they started putting punitive actions. All leaders except Gandhi was arrested, because they knew like if they arrest Gandhi, the whole country will burn. So they did not arrest Gandhi at that time. 1921, the next session, Nagpur session, presided by C.R. Das. He was actually in jail. So as an acting president, Hakim Ajmal Khan was the president of INC. Just remember, when such things choose to happen, if the president was in jail in the mid of the session or something, then some acting president would be acting, and it was Hakim Ajmal Khan. But the session would definitely happen. Appointed Gandhi as the supreme authority of the movement. CWC, that is Congress Working Committee, insisted on launching civil disobedience movement now. So that is not only do the non-cooperation, but start doing something to disobey and do something against the government. Gandhi agreed and gave conditions to the government. Okay, he gave two conditions. One is release all the political prisoners which they arrested and take off the control over presses. So whatever ban they have done, just take it off. But meanwhile, when things were going very good, Chauri Chaura incident happens at Gorakhpur. Police was beating up a leader, one movement leader, on the street. What happened was the mob set on fire the entire police station, and policemen died. They also killed policemen and threw into the fire. So this was totally against what Gandhi wanted. Gandhi always wanted non-violent methods, but these people, because of agitation, because one leader was hit or attacked by the policeman, it was turning into a totally non-violent thing which Gandhi could not even bear. Okay, unhappy by this, Gandhi withdrew from this movement. Many were not happy. Gandhi was arrested now for 6 years, okay, because he withdrew. And his statement was, I am here therefore to invite and submit cheerfully to the highest penalty that can be inflicted upon me for what in law is a deliberate crime and what appears to me to be the highest duty of a citizen. So even though he was against the British, he was obeying all the laws, okay. He told like, okay, I understand this was a violent thing, the police station burning was a wrong thing, so I am here to accept the punishment. So why Gandhi withdrew? Again, he thought like people were not ready for non-violent method of protest. British would use any violence as a reason to use arms and open fire, because he did not want another Jallianwala Bagh to happen, because he thought like any small violence from our side will provoke them, so they'll again come up with open firing. He did not want to repeat the atrocities. The same thing in Turkey. Meanwhile, Mustafa Kemal Pasha, you see in the picture, he rose to power and made Turkey a secular state. So the problem in Turkey was also over. So obviously now Gandhi is also silent, Turkey problem also over, so Muslims will not participate. So slowly the reasons which were behind the NCM and Khilafat movement were getting suppressed. Okay, evaluation, Muslims joined in for religious issue. They did not come for a national issue, they came in for only a religious issue, because they knew Gandhi could raise the issue of Turkey with the British. Leaders could not raise it to the national secular field, okay, same thing, religious issue. Masses participated in huge numbers, gave rise to revolutionaries across India, many youth across India. That is the time when even Bhagat Singh and all, motivated by Mahatma Gandhi's leadership, will start rising at very young age. Two myths were broken. First, the British serves Indian interest, because like the carrot policy, they understood like Montagu reforms were just a myth or something like that. It was not at all for Indian interest. They basically wanted Indians to be suppressed. Second, invincibility, that is now they understood like British also can be defeated easily if we come into a mass group under a strong leader. So that is what we have to discuss in this part 1. There is a lot of more information from 1919 to 1939. So we have seen very important topics like non-cooperation movements, Jallianwala Bagh, Rowlatt Act, Montagu reforms. So all are very potentially questionable things by UPSC. So please go through this video again if you could not understand any part, and feel free to ask any doubts in the comment section. We'll see 2 quotes. To sound the order of retreat when public enthusiasm was reaching its boiling point was nothing short of a national calamity. This was by Subhash Chandra Bose. So he was not at all happy when Gandhi withdrew from the non-cooperation movement after the Chauri Chaura incident. He told like people were at its peak, at boiling point, and they were that much anger was there within them. So withdrawing from the movement for a small incident was a national calamity. You will learn later about Gandhi-Bose conflict, which can be a question also, because UPSC has asked once about how Gandhi-Ambedkar relation was and how Gandhi, I think Rabindranath Tagore, they have asked anything related. Gandhi is a definite question, whether it be GS1 or history options, Gandhi questions will definitely come. So you should know his relation with the contemporary leaders. Next one is I would suffer any humiliation, every torture, absolute ostracism and death itself to prevent the movement from becoming violent. So same thing, whatever happens, he won't choose violent methods. He is ready to even die, but he will not do violent method. He will not go to violent methods. This was mentioned by him in his article in Young India. Okay, prelims question, actually I did not put it here. I have to again go through the PDFs to pick up the questions related to this topic. So once it is there, maybe in the next chapter, next video, I will include it in the starting. Also, this chapter is anyway going to go for 4 parts, so I will include prelims question in that. Maybe you can answer it there, and please give feedback for all the videos. I have not received much feedback, and that is actually not so motivating for us, because we put a lot of effort scanning the events for you from the Spectrum textbook and give it to you the right way which is suitable for UPSC exam. So please give us feedback on our Facebook page or YouTube channel. And for buying the entire PDF in one shot, you can come and ping us in the Facebook page. We'll provide it to you. Till then, till we come up with part 2 of chapter 9, enjoy learning. Thank you and have a nice day.